Yeah, so my name is Dominic Henry, and I'm an assistant
And
professor
here we
at the
go.
University of Minnesota.
And we have some exciting stuff kicking off today. The
Mhm.
launch of Artemis II, going to be
Settle.
sort of a test flight
Minus
that could pave
25
the way
inches.
for some
Ready.
future projects
4,
by
3,
NASA.
2,
Mhm.
Why do
1.
you think this
Booster
is pretty
ignition.
significant for space
And
exploration?
liftoff.
For a lot of reasons. So, for one, it's the first time we're going back to the moon since, the early days of Apollo and all of that good stuff. So this is the equivalent of our Apollo 8 when astronauts first went and orbited around the moon. So this is the first step in a series of missions by NASA to get us back to the moon. And this time, when we go back, we're going to stay there. So the key push this time is to develop a sustainable human presence on the moon. So when we think about the future of space exploration, right, we're not just thinking about racing to get somewhere and then getting there and then not going back. We're thinking about how are we going to stay at the moon? How can we do really interesting science at the moon? What are our resources at the moon that we don't have here back on Earth that we could potentially bring back? Uh, all of these things just very, very exciting. Future potential in our capabilities for operating in space at the moon and then eventually onto Mars. So,
All right. And
mm,
I understand this is a 10-day mission. They're testing some equipment, I believe. Sort of the rocket. Forgive me if my terms aren't perfectly
no, no.
accurate. Uh, Coming off another story, no, by
Mm.
no means a rocket scientist, but it's like it's a capsule or something we're testing. Is that accurate?
Right, right. So we're testing the life support capabilities of the what's called the Orion capsule, which is, later on today we're going to see the astronauts sit on top of this giant big rocket, but the place that they'll live is just in, this small capsule. It's about the size of two minivans. And that's what they're going to be living in for 10 days. And so they need to figure out, or they're just making sure, are all of those life support systems operational? Are we cleaning out the CO2? Are we getting rid of human waste? Uh, is the temperature comfortable for them? These types of things.
What do you think the value is of just laying this groundwork?
The value of yeah. So a few of the things that I mentioned before. So one is or sorry, when you say laying the groundwork, are you asking for the this mission in particular or the series of
This
missions
mission
after?
and the missions that it's going to help set up for afterwards.
Gotcha. Yeah. So as far as laying the groundwork for all of the different things that we're going to do afterwards, this mission will, allow us to do that initial testing, right? So there's a saying that they have at NASA where you can only really expect one miracle per mission, right? So you only want to test out one miracle at a time. So this miracle is all of the life support systems and everything that'll keep the astronauts safe on board. We're just going to make sure that that is all good to go, so that later on down the line, in a couple years, we can have the astronauts actually land on the moon and start doing some interesting science back down on the lunar surface. So there's sort of different reasons why we should all be really excited about the prospect of having a sustainable presence at the moon. One is the science perspective. So there's a lot of interesting science still to be done on the moon. It wasn't until after the Apollo program that we found out that there's water on the lunar surface. So that was kind of a big deal. And The moon is a nice, quiet place to do our science, right? So there's talks of setting up research stations where we'll have space telescopes on the moon and radio telescopes that can listen to sort of the echoes of the formation of the universe. And then from a economic perspective, there's a lot of resources on the moon that we could leverage here on Earth, right? So one of the big resources that everybody's talking about right now is what's called helium-3. So helium-3 is this sort of very light form of helium that is quite rare on the Earth, but is much more abundant on the lunar surface. And helium-3 could be used for things like fusion energy, which, if you're not familiar with fusion energy, that's sort of like us creating our own small sun here on Earth to use to create energy for the various things that we use energy for. And then it's also quite useful for things like quantum computing, which is the next generation of computers that hopefully we'll all get a chance to use. So then there's just sort of the intrinsic value, right? Beyond the scientific value and the economic value, there's also just, that sense in space exploration of there's there's value in understanding fundamental questions in terms of, how did our universe form, all of those interesting things. I think that's what got people really excited about the James Webb Space Telescope a while back. And then there's also just our sort of intrinsic desire to explore. So, you know, it didn't really hit me until today. But when I really thought about the fact that humans are going to be on this spacecraft, is it's just more exciting, right? Than a robotic mission. It's more inspiring. Um, a lot of folks, a lot of my mentors, they talk about, when they were watching the Apollo program and how that inspired them to get into the field. And I'm hoping that these missions can do a lot of the same for younger folks today. And it inspires me as well. So um, there's that aspect. I could list one more if we if we want to keep going, but there is also a national security angle to this. So we mentioned all of those resources that are on the moon. The people that get to the moon first are going to have a larger say in what the rules of the road are in terms of what happens to those resources, how they come back here on Earth.
All right. And you talked about this sort of being our generation's Apollo missions, potentially. Appropriate naming there.
Mhm.
Probably the intention from the beginning.
Mhm.
But uh, in terms of just that inspirational element you mentioned, do you think as we're trying to like get back into lunar exploration here, like there has been sort of a media blitz surrounding this mission in the lead up to it. Um, do you think we could capture that same kind of atmosphere these days when it comes to space exploration?
Yeah, I hope so. And I think that that kind of goes back to some of that intrinsic value that I was talking about before. So, there's a bit of competition going on as there always is, but I think one of the really exciting things about space exploration is how it can bring the whole world together in the pursuit of these really complex, complicated technical objectives and um, the pursuit of solving challenging problems. So I I hope that yes, as we push these missions forward, we can sort of use this as a rallying point or a sort of source of inspiration for us all to be proud of what we're doing together. Yeah.
All right. Anything else you want to say that our viewers might find interesting about this mission or what it could lead to while I have you here?
Um, yeah, well, I should probably just also mention that another really important reason why we're going to the moon is to eventually get humans to Mars as well, right? And so a lot of the technology we'll be able to test out when we're building moon habitats and these lunar bases. We should also be able to carry that technology forward to go even deeper into space and eventually set up similar operations on the surface of Mars. So this all sort of connects to kind of a larger vision that sees us as a race that really operates all throughout the solar system, which I think is very exciting.
Oh yeah, it sounds exciting.
Mm.
Looking
Mhm.
forward to seeing takeoff here. Well, thank you so much
Mm,
for taking the time to talk with us about this.
mhm.
Really appreciate getting to hear what you had to say.